What's good, YouTube? My name is Aisha, and this is my channel, The Realist Idealist, where I will be sharing my experiences as a professional in diverse and not so diverse professional environments. My hope is that by sharing, it'll open your heart in terms of responding to challenges within the workplace from a place of compassion and understanding instead of fear and confusion. If you like what you hear, please like, share, and subscribe my videos from The Realist Idealist with your community. Thank you in advance. So let's get into it. We all hear about diversity and inclusion in the workplace. It seems like the news cycle has a dedicated output of people in power who overestimated their professional privilege and disrespected, harassed, abused, or obstructed individuals from different backgrounds, professional life, because of their racism, prejudice, sexism, homophobia, etc. I think we're all pretty scared that we might make the same mistakes that these business professionals are making as we're watching them march to their executions on television. No one really tells us how we should change. Countless times I've heard colleagues sigh as the perspectives of non-white employees are taking more space in our collective dialogue. I'm not the only one that's heard these. I'm sure that, people are so sensitive these days. And why does everything have to be so politically correct? It's so boring. Or, well, I grew up with this, insert the race, people. So what is wrong with that person that doesn't let me speak the same way? I've heard about women. She needs to loosen up. We're just joking. This is why it's so hard to work with women. Or she must be a nightmare at home. I know. You've heard these things too. And these are the things that come up when we're facing diversity and inclusion because they typically point to experiences in the workplace that are becoming uncomfortable. It's like the dominant culture feels like they can't say anything right. And meanwhile, me as a non-white person wishes people would say a lot less and they would think a lot more. So what should we be focusing on? Like, how do people evolve into the human ideal in their personal and professional lives? This is a question that I ask myself because I face this limitation on a regular basis. As an African American female in the workplace, my experience has often been so isolating. At times, it seemed like no one cared about my emotions, my experience of cultural differences, or the impact that those experiences could have on my performance. After watching execution after execution of Black people on television, it's hard to show up to work on Wednesday. Most companies want to pretend like they're going to be able to accomplish that ideal. They want to create these organizations that are like Google or WeWork or whatever, sort of diverse, amazing places where people are attracted to the culture because of the reputation of the organization. And that's beautiful in theory, but what does it look like in real life? I mean, let's keep it real. What does it take to make everyone feel like they're in a safe space at work? What internal resources and the resources of the organization are necessary to navigate it? Now, there are many ideas on what the mechanism for diversity and inclusion should look like. I'm not an expert there. This is more about a spiritual belief. I believe that the most important thing that we can do for one another in any environment, whether that be personal or professional, is to have compassion and understanding. So what does that mean? Well, let's take an experience that I had several years ago when I worked for an organization where there was a director that had a serious drinking problem. And when we would go out for happy hours as an organization, when they became inebriated, they'd start to have all these really intense, charged conversations about race, specifically with me, the singular African American woman, at the table. They'd say weird racist or sexist jokes, and it made me so uncomfortable. I literally gave up my beloved charcuterie and rosé glass to go home because I didn't want to be upset in the evening after work and look at them crazy the next morning. Now, I didn't know whether my peers ignored that person's behavior or whether they were complicit. And the reason why I didn't know is because no one said anything. Even though we were all uncomfortable, everyone got quiet and they were afraid because of the privilege of this person's position, so they didn't call him out. Now, they also didn't ask me if I was okay. They pretended as if they didn't see my discomfort, I think because it was easier. Some may have agreed with the director's behavior or thought it wasn't a big deal, but those that didn't never raised their voices. Not a pat on the back of encouragement, no validation. And if I ever brought up the fact that I was uncomfortable with the person's behavior, they go, well, don't be so sensitive. Even though they knew that the situation was uncomfortable. So uncomfortable, in fact, that they didn't even want to bring it up. So what did I need in that moment of isolation from my peers? I can think of a few things. If it were me, I probably would have distracted the director and steered the conversation away from the individual. Or maybe invite someone to the bar so I could get him a drink and say, hey, are you okay? It seems like you're being put in a weird situation at the table over there, but I just want you to know, I see you. someone could have spoken up and said, maybe we should have this conversation over coffee. I can't keep up while this booze is flowing with this intense conversation. Unfortunately, my humanity didn't seem important enough to the people at that point to speak up for. And this is really the crux of diversity and inclusion, because when we are in difficult situations, this is when people really need our support. This is when we should be asking ourselves, how would we feel if we were in that situation? And what would we want other people to do to alleviate our discomfort? It's not rocket science, but it definitely takes empathy. So when you are facing challenges in the workplace where someone is having an experience that you don't understand, the trick is to be compassionate. We give people the benefit of the doubt. We listen and we try to connect to what their experience might be and how we can be an encouragement to that person as we begin to navigate these massive changes that are happening in our society and how those are affecting the way that things are going in our professional spheres. It's not as difficult as you might think. How can each granular moment where we're interacting with our coworkers be a safe place for them, where we're not calling them out about their differences all the time, or we're not disrespecting them because of their differences? This is possible. We do have to be awake though, and we don't just get to just brush it off and say, you're being too sensitive. Maybe the question is, am I being sensitive enough? Thanks for listening. This is The Realist Idealist. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you dig it, you guys, stay blessed and keep the ideal real.